The unthinkable has happened inside the Vatican. As the bells of St. Peter's tolled quietly under an overcast Roman sky, a message passed from hand to trembling hand behind the walls of the Apostolic Palace. It was sealed in crimson wax, bearing the ring of the fisherman, the personal seal of Pope Leo XIV. Its destination, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. No one spoke of it aloud, not in the corridors, not in the cafes, not even in the silence of prayer. But all knew something had shifted. Those close to the Holy Father said he had spent the previous 3 nights in near total silence, walking alone in the Vatican gardens, sometimes pausing for long stretches at the Grotto of Lourdes, his face pale, his eyes fixed on something no one else could see. And then, on the morning of June 26th, it happened. Cardinal Tagle, once whispered to be the Asian Francis, the beloved face of compassion and missionary zeal, received the Pope's summons. There was no formal audience, no grand procession, only a quiet knock at his door in the Domus Sanctae, Martha and a young cleric, eyes wide with fear, holding the envelope like it might burst into flame. Inside the letter were 4 words, "You know what must." Tagle said nothing. He simply rose, placed a small crucifix in his pocket, and left the room. What followed was not announced to the press, no Vatican communique, no statement from the Holy See press office. But what leaked, what could not, be contained, spread like fire across Rome and into the heart of every Catholic watching, praying, trembling. Sources from inside the College of Cardinals revealed that Leo XIV had delivered a final warning to Tagle behind closed doors just days before, a warning not born of politics but of prophecy. The Pope, deeply burdened, had reportedly spoken of a shadow among the shepherds, a spirit of division hiding beneath the garments of peace. He named no one aloud, but his eyes, it is said, lingered on Tagle. And then, the midnight meeting. 12 men. No translators, no secretaries. Only the Pope, the most trusted of the great ones, and a document older than the Vatican Library itself. A parchment allegedly penned in 1820 by Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, locked away for over 2 centuries, speaking of the time when the Church shall be cleansed by the fire of its own sorrow. The document mentioned a cardinal from the East, one who would preach mercy yet unknowingly walk the edge of compromise, one who would be loved by millions but tested in fire. The meeting ended just after 3 a.m. By sunrise, a Vatican. Car was seen departing to Albano, where Tagle was said to have been relocated for contemplation and prayer. But others, closer to him, believe this was no mere reassignment. They claim Tagle was weeping, that he left behind his zucchetto and red sash on the chapel bench where he had once led vespers. And what of Pope Leo XIII? He has not appeared publicly since the decision. Only a brief flicker, his silhouette seen at the papal apartment's window, holding what looked like a handwritten journal. One aide, visibly shaken, later told a source, "He has seen things, dreams, warnings." He said, "It has begun. The spiritual war long whispered about in prophecy, the one hidden beneath centuries of tradition, sealed behind ritual and incense, has been triggered. A final warning." Then the silence. But silence in the Church is never empty. All across the world, the faithful began reporting strange phenomena. In Manila, hundreds claimed to see a great dove circling the cathedral. In Avila, a statue of St. Teresa was said to weep oil for 7 minutes precisely at the hour of Tagle's removal. In Medjugorje, a seer said she saw a great shepherd being pruned by heaven, so the vine may bear fruit again. And then, a letter surfaced, unsigned, unverified, but bearing the distinctive looping script known to those in the Vatican. It read, "Do not weep for the ones who are cut. Weep for the ones who will not be. I must act not for man's approval, but for the bride who bleeds. Forgive him, love him, but let no root of compromise grow in this soil. The Lord comes quickly." What did Pope Leo XIV mean? Was it truly Tagle who had compromised, or was he a necessary offering, a sign to all bishops that the hour of purification had arrived. No one can say for sure. But one thing is certain: the battle within the Church is no longer hidden. The war between fidelity and modernity, between reverence and revolution, has come to the surface. The third secret of Fatima, long believed to have been revealed in full, now feels alive again. Because that same Emmerich document seen by Leo XIII also warned of a pope in white who walks over the bodies of his faithful weeping. Some now whisper that Pope Francis was that pope, and Leo XIII is the one tasked with what comes after. And as for Tagle, rumors swirl that he has been sent on a secret mission, not punishment, but prophecy, that a hidden chapel deep beneath the Holy Land now shelters him, that he prays daily before relics untouched for centuries, that heaven has not discarded him, but hidden him, because soon he will be needed again. But not as a cardinal, as a witness to what heaven must do when men will no longer listen, and the world, it watches in confusion. But the remnant, those who still kneel, who still fast, who still weep before the Blessed Sacrament, they know. They feel it in their bones. The shaking has begun. He who has ears, let him hear. Yes, the shaking has begun, and the heavens have not remained silent. Since that fateful midnight, something has shifted, not just in Rome, but across the unseen realms. Those who pray with eyes open, those who fast with ears to the winds of heaven know it. The spiritual atmosphere around the Catholic Church has thickened. A veil has torn, silently, invisibly, but once torn, it can never be sewn again. The bride of Christ is entering her agony. Within the colonnades of St. Peter's, whispers echo louder than hymns. Swiss guards, normally stone-faced, now exchange uneasy glances. Priests have been seen leaving confessionals in tears. A sense of something approaching, something vast and terrible, haunts the marble halls where saints once walked and martyrs once bled. What did Pope Leo XIV see? What vision drove him to deliver such a final, soul-piercing warning to Cardinal Tagle, a man once considered the very image of the future Church? It began, sources say, with a dream. But not just any dream. A recurring vision of fire falling upon the basilica, of wolves circling the altar, of a chalice overturned and the host shattered on the marble floor. 3 times it came. Each time the same voice thundered from the dark, "Purge the house, or I shall." The Pope, awakened in sweat, turned to the ancient scrolls, not those open to public scholars, but those kept in the apostolic archive, behind doors sealed for centuries. One parchment in particular, handwritten in Latin and charred at the edges, is said to have borne a terrifying sentence. "In the year of the lion's rise, the east shall be tested by fire. One who wears the red shall be given a white garment. If he accepts it not, the bride shall bleed again." And it was then that he knew the time had come. But to act meant to cut, and to cut meant to bleed. And so he summoned Tagle, not with wrath, but with holy sorrow. They prayed together for hours in the private chapel of Nicholas V. They wept, but Leo XIV, despite the tears, did not relent. He handed Tagle a sealed document, its contents still unknown, and spoke these words: "You are beloved, Luis, but the Lord is asking for something more." The cardinal, once seen as the future face of the global church, looked up with trembling eyes. "Is this exile?" he asked. Leo XIV reportedly shook his head and said only, "This is mercy, before judgment comes." But what could be so grave? What did Tagle do, or fail to do, that would warrant such an extraordinary intervention? Some say it was a dossier. Buried deep in the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith was a file long hidden under the pontificate of Francis. It contained testimonies, letters, and reports of silent compromise, doctrinal ambiguity spread in the name of pastoral outreach, liturgical innovations that diluted reverence, interreligious gestures that caused scandal in the East. None of it was criminal. All of it, spiritual poison, And in an age when the Catholic Church teeters between tradition and transformation, poison, even in small drops, can shatter souls. But others believe it was not just what Tagle did, but what he represented. A symbol, a movement, a bridge to a new model of church, one built not on the rock of Peter, but on the shifting sands of consensus, inclusion, and worldly approval. Leo. XIV, it seems, had chosen, and with that choice, the spiritual war erupted. Inside the Vatican now, two armies move in silence. One wears the garments of compassion, unity, and reform. The other clutches rosaries, speaks in whispers, and gathers by candlelight. These are the ones who believe the Church must return to her knees, that she must be pruned, violently, if necessary, to bear fruit again. There are cardinals who have gone silent, others who have vanished from Rome entirely. It is rumored that one senior cardinal boarded a flight to Buenos Aires the day after Tagle's removal, without luggage, without explanation. Another, said to be part of a secret faction resisting the Pope's purification efforts, was seen burning documents in the gardens of Castel Gandolfo. The Vatican's internal communications have gone strangely quiet, but the faithful, they are hearing more than ever. Visions are increasing. Warnings are multiplying. Eucharistic miracles are being reported in rural parishes. One priest in Nigeria reportedly found the sacred host pulsating like a human heart during adoration on the same night Tagle was reassigned. In Poland, a statue of the Immaculate Heart reportedly bled water. And in Mexico City, a child described a dream where the Pope cried blood and angels closed the doors of heaven for 7 days. 7 days. How long was Noah given before the rains came? In one letter allegedly leaked from the Vatican's apostolic palace, a cryptic Latin line was found at the bottom: Lignum crucis succidatur, nisi radix emundatur. The wood of the cross shall be cut down unless the root is purified. Could it be that Tagle's removal was not punishment, but prevention? That God in his mercy is pruning his church before fire falls? And what if the one who appeared, so gentle, so beloved, was not malicious, but simply chosen to carry the weight of the first cut? For prophecy is not always clear. Saints are often misunderstood, and those who weep in silence may be counted among the great ones in heaven. Still, there are rumors of something more, that Pope Leo XIV is preparing one final document, a Decimus Manus, a 10th hand letter to be read only in the event of his death. Those close to him say it contains a blueprint for the final purification of the Church. A plan whispered to him in prayer, forged through fasting and sealed by heaven's own silence. But even now, factions gather. Some among the clergy are calling for a return to Francis. Others cry for the Latin Mass to be restored without restriction. Pilgrims flood the Vatican gates, clutching rosaries and relics. Exorcists, once dismissed as relics of a darker age, are being summoned to Rome, and Pope Leo XIV remains in seclusion. But the final line of his last public homily, just days before this all began, now echoes like thunder through the spiritual realms. The hour of silence is over. The shepherd will speak, and woe to the wolves. The Yang. Church is bleeding, but the bride of Christ bleeds before she is crowned. Heaven is moving, earth is trembling, and the purifying fire is just beginning. And so, the bride weeps beneath the stars, cloaked not in silk but in ash. In cathedrals across the world, candles flicker, but do not go out. The prayers of the faithful rise, like incense into a storm-tossed heaven, as lightning cracks over domes and towers, as thunder rolls through stone chapels and gilded basilicas. Rome itself feels like a city suspended in prophecy. Pope Leo XIV has not emerged publicly in over a week. Cardinals come and go in silence. The apostolic palace remains shrouded, its windows dark, its halls echoing with whispers of a conclave that never truly ended. Some say the Pope has taken to sleeping before the Blessed Sacrament every night, barefoot, without mitre, whispering the Psalms of David under his breath until dawn breaks over the Tiber. He is a man consumed not by power, but by burden. And in that burden lies the war. Because this is no longer merely about Tagle. It never was. Tagle was the spark. But the fire, the holy fire of purification, is roaring now through the walls of the church itself. It rages through seminaries, through chancelleries, through the hidden chambers of those who once held secrets sealed in silence. It exposes, it judges, it illuminates. For the hour of exposure is here. The saints long buried beneath altar stones are rising, not bodily but spiritually, to bear witness. You can feel them, the fire of Catherine of Siena, the tears of Bernadette, the thunder of Padre Pio, the blood of Maximilian Kolbe. They are rising, praying, warring, interceding. This is not just a change in leadership. This is warfare between ages. The modern age, with its pride, its compromises, its hollow tolerance, is now clashing with the age of martyrs, the age of truth, the age of fire and fidelity. And the battlefield is the very body of Christ, her heart, the Eucharist, her lungs, the liturgy, her bones, the apostolic succession. And now, even her soul trembles. The Vatican's secret factions are no longer hiding. Documents are leaking. Names are being spoken that were once only murmured in sealed meetings. A list, allegedly handwritten by Leo XIV himself, was found in the Pope's private chapel, containing the initials of those he believes have been swallowed by the smoke of Satan, echoing the words of Pope Paul VI decades ago. On that list, sources say, were over a dozen cardinals, but alongside that list, another, marked in red wax with the Chi-Rho symbol burned into the seal. A prophecy? A commission? A warning? No one knows what it says, but whispers say it has already been sent to 5 bishops across 5 continents. They are said to be the lampstands. And through them, the final call will be sounded, because the bride must prepare. She will not be rescued in comfort. She will not be delivered by negotiation. She will be tested in fire. She will walk her own passion. But through her agony shall come glory. And what of Tagle? It is now believed he has not left Rome entirely, that he remains hidden somewhere deep within the ancient catacombs of St. Sebastian, where martyrs once bled and early Christians prayed under threat of death. There, they say, he is fasting, praying, waiting. Because Leo XIV did not cast him out. He sent him forward to fulfill a role that prophecy alone can reveal. For not all removals are rejections. Some are consecrations. And when the fire has consumed the deadwood, what remains will shine. But as this fire spreads, heaven has sent one final sign. Last night, during adoration in a remote chapel in Croatia, a monstrance cracked, not shattered, but cracked down. Its golden center. From the split emerged a single drop of blood. The priest fell to his knees, weeping. Behind him, a child's voice was heard saying, "The bride is almost ready, but the sword must fall." What sword? Who will wield it? That is the mystery. Perhaps it will be Pope Leo XIV himself, in an act of final obedience, offering his own life for the cleansing of the church. Or perhaps the sword is truth, sharp, blinding, dividing even bishop from bishop. Or perhaps it is Christ himself, coming as lion and not lamb, because this is no longer just about power. This is about the fulfillment of ancient visions. The church will not die, but she will be broken open, and in her breaking, the world will be judged. One final twist has now emerged. This morning, a lone dove landed on the statue of St. Peter holding the keys. It remained there for nearly 12 minutes, facing east, unmoving. Pilgrims gathered, silently watching, hearts pounding. One nun whispered, "It's as if it waits for something to be unlocked." And then, without warning, it flew straight toward the dome and vanished. That dome, that great basilica, may soon witness either the greatest revival the Catholic Church has ever seen, or its most glorious martyrdom. And in the silence that follows, heaven waits. Because the sword is in the air, and the next sound we hear may be its fall.